Hello and happy Monday to all of you, wherever you are watching me from around the world. Thank you for joining me for this live teaching. I am Krista Bontrager. I'm a Christian theologian and public apologist, and this is the channel where I offer teaching and theological commentary on social issues. Now, I know it's been a while since we've seen each other, a couple of months, and in case you don't follow me on Facebook, you may be wondering where I've been. Well, I've been working hard on research and writing for my doctoral dissertation. As most of you know, I'm working on Doctor of Ministry at Birmingham Theological Seminary, and I'm in the dissertation writing phase right now. And so I've set some goals for myself that I'm trying to meet, but in order to meet those goals, I've had to delay some teaching and podcasting over the last couple of months, and those delays will likely continue for a few more months. But I did want to take a little bit of time today out of my schedule to do some content so that the algorithm doesn't think I've stopped producing content, because that's a thing. And so I just want to let everyone know out there in the big tech space not to cancel my channel. So I did put a post on social media late last week asking for followers to send in their questions for a live Q&A. So I'm going to be fielding some of those questions today, some of the ones I found that were the most interesting to me, or I felt like, oh yeah, I think I could comment on that. But because I am live today, I do want to welcome you to put your comments in the chat. The best place to do that is over on YouTube. If you put them on Facebook, I might not see them until after I've signed off. So if you really want to make sure that I see them, go put them over on the Theology Mom YouTube page. And I do always appreciate reading your comments when you come on the live. And I love to know who's watching and where you're watching from. So just feel free to give me that shout out there and let me know if you're watching. So I see Kathy's on, and Susanna and Laura. Have you had you live streaming I have you live streaming while I finish repacking. So good. Well, I'm hopeful that this is going to be a little bit of fun today, something a little different. I don't do Q&As very often, but I thought this would be fun. So let's get into it. The first question I'm going to take is from Allison, and Allison is a frequent watcher on our streams and a volunteer at the Center for Biblical Unity. So her question is, what is your preferred way of reading the Bible? Do you use a certain version, paper copy, or audio Bible? Do you follow a Bible reading plan? Chronological, Old Testament, New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, or read through a book at a time? Like, just breaking it down, how do I do it? That's a great question. I don't know if I really have a great system for doing this. I tend to, in our Bible reading time as a family, I use the 1984 NIV because that was the Bible that I gave to my husband and I as our family Bible on our wedding day. And so that is the Bible that I use on the daily in our family Bible time together. I like the NIV 1984. Our daughter uses the NIV 2011. Which was just a little update to the 1984 version. I think my husband prefers the NET, I forget what it is, New English translation. It's the one with Dan Wallace from Dallas Seminary behind it, but that's a good one too. And I've been checking out lately the Legacy Standard Bible, which is kind of an update from the old NASB, the New American Standard Bible. I kind of am digging the Legacy Bible lately, just for stuff, looking up things on my own. So, I don't necessarily these are not paid endorsements. These are preferences. There are many fine versions of the Bible, and a really great way to try one out for free. Is just go on BibleGateway.com and you can try one out and see what you like about it. What's cool is a feature on Bible Gateway that I use a lot is you can you can turn something on, a mechanism on, where you can look up a basic definition in Greek and Hebrew for the Bible. So once you click on that feature on Bible Gateway, and I think you have to be using the NIV in order to activate it, but once you do that, then it will show you kind of a transliteration in the original language. And then you could just click on the word and read a basic definition. That's really nice. It's not going to be a detailed definition, but it gives you just kind of some basic aspects to the definition. That's cool. Paper copy or audio. Okay, so here's my little um, thing about that. Oh, Susanna says, I like the commuter Bible you suggested. Commuter Bible is awesome. He's a friend of our friend Kevin Briggins. He was a sponsor during the month of January and talking about his effort to turn an audio Bible into a podcast format. So it delivers it to your podcast feed Monday through Friday. And there's an Old Testament plan and a New Testament plan. It's kind of cool and creative. So that's great. And I think that, all right, so let me talk about paper Bibles, audio Bibles, and then Bible apps and pros and cons. I think this is really important. So biblical literacy is very low right now. So what I want to encourage you to do is have a paper Bible. But also more than that is make sure that your children have a paper Bible and that you are actively using it regularly as a family and that they are interacting with the paper Bible and making it their own. Encourage them to write in it, highlight it, pencil it, take notes in the side columns, and all of that. I write in my Bible regularly, almost every day, where I'm underlining things or writing my own cross references. Have a paper Bible, interact with it. It helps stimulate the brain. It will help it stay in your brain more. And an app is a convenience that we can have, but don't make reading the Bible on the app the primary way that you are interacting with the Bible. Make sure that you have a paper Bible and that you are training your children with the paper Bible and that you are interacting with it physically, because that literally helps to stimulate your brain. And so it'll help it you not be a passive reader. Audio Bibles are great for when you're commuting. And my husband has read through the Bible, I don't know, once a year for the last 7, 8 years now, maybe even more than that. And he largely does that through listening to the audio Bible. I think he does it kind of at night. But he's always maintaining that goal. And that's great if you want to interact with it as you're doing like a plan. I think that's awesome. But make sure that you are having that paper Bible and that thing is your friend. You want to be able to know how to flip places and see things and training your children in that. And make sure that you're teaching your children the books of the Bible, have them memorized, because unfortunately, that's almost never taught anymore. And so make sure that you are doing that with your kids on the regular. And okay. My pastor, there's a comment on YouTube. My pastor has a Bible that is full of notes and is literally in pieces. We talked him into getting a replacement, the exact same version, before we have a Bible catastrophe where we have to reorder. Yeah, I would love to maybe get our family Bible that's over 30 years old now, maybe rebound at some point, but I would feel so sad to lose it because I've got all those notes in there and underlines. And I know where everything is, and I got, the parts that are really nicely creased and everything. So anyways, those are some thoughts about that. And hopefully that's helpful. As far as a reading plan, there's tons of great reading plans. I think my husband uses one like it's called the Four Streams or something. And you read through the whole Old Testament in a year, and then you read through the New Testament 4 times. And that's cool. And then you read through like a psalm a couple of times. I don't know how it works, but he loves that plan. But there's a lot of great plans, chronological, whatever. I'm just I don't use Bible reading plans really. I just kind of go at my own pace. And if there's something I really want to study, that's great. Right now, we're reading through the book of Judges together as a family. And we have a log of what books of the Bible that we've read through and the dates and how long it took us and all of that. Monique, I know, is reading through the book of Isaiah right now and having fun with that. So, anyways, that's some thoughts about.
A question.
Oh, you asked me a question. Where is it?
It's on YouTube.
I can't just read your mind. You gotta.
That's why I'm opening my mouth and saying something. Advocacy.
I don't see it. It just says you're here. Oh, what is your favorite ministry partner? Who is my favorite ministry partner? Oh, that'd probably be Bob. Would be Monique and Bob. What kind of corner are you trying to paint me into here? All right. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next question. Hope that helps you, Allison. All right, let's do Kaylin. Kaylin is in Alaska, I believe. What would you recommend as effective ways to incorporate mentoring into the life of your church or into your life and your church? We can see that those serving our church are aging, but the younger ones are not stepping up as much as we have seen in previous generations. At least that's the impression. I think this is a great question. Last fall, I did a teaching series on elders and eldership in the church. And I really think that this is part of that larger conversation of leadership in the church. So my thought about this is that mentoring ought to be part of the church culture whenever possible. So, and different churches can accomplish this differently. Like, for example, the one church that my husband and I attend occasionally here in our hometown, they have an interesting program of a 1 night a week, 2-year study program for the men in the church to get equipping and training for ministry. And they walk them through, some important aspects of the Bible, how to understand the Bible, ministry issues, and all of that. So they just graduated their first kind of 2-year cohort. Now they're starting another 2-year cohort this fall. And at the end of that cohort, what they have to do is write a capstone project. And it was the Sunday, I don't know, some couple months ago, they brought all the men up on the stage who had just finished the cohort. That was maybe like 30 men in the church. And they each had to write a capstone project, and they had them out on display on the patio afterward so you could look at them. And it was just what a wonderful idea, because these men are now deeply invested in the culture of the church. And like a couple of them wrote papers. They participate on the worship team. And so they wrote papers related to practical issues related to worship and how does theology come to bear on that issue. There was one paper or capstone project that one of the men wrote on online dating and how to do online dating with biblical wisdom in mind. Just such creative topics that they came and to the table with as a result of the education that the church had provided them. And so that's what I mean by it needs to be part of the culture. If the culture has a mentoring component to it, then you'll constantly be building up a new group of people to serve in that church. At my daughter's church, the way that they do mentoring is that they have a weekly class, and that for them, they have a 3-year structured program where they go into the program and they learn about basic theology and prayer and fasting and all of these different things. But then if you persevere and you get through the 3-year program, then they kind of have some capstone activities that you do at the end and graduate. And then you're seen as someone that the church can tap into for different leadership, lay leadership positions, or you can develop your own ministry under the guidance of the church leadership. And so again, I think that different churches can accomplish mentoring differently, but there has to be a priority of how are we going to make mentoring part of our church culture. As far as you know, individual mentoring, I don't really have too many thoughts about that. I haven't, for me, I guess my mentors have always been sort of informal, of people that I've admired their work. Sometimes I think of certain books that I've read, like Ron Nash. He's a Christian philosopher. I've read many of his books, and his thinking has shaped me. And in that sense, that's a form of mentoring. A couple of my coworkers, I feel like, have been mentors to me in my life, but I've never really been in a structured professional mentoring relationship. So I don't really have too much to say about that would be informed. So, all right. Let me, okay. Just seeing if there's any follow-ups there. Okay, with that, we're going to take a quick time out and hear from our friends at Maven Conference. And I want to tell you, especially if you're living in the Texas area or near the Dallas area, to come out for the Maven Conference in September. And I'll see you back here in 1 minute with some more of your questions.
Dozens more protesters were arrested today on the campus of the University of Texas in Austin.
Drag queens are just here to entertain. We can read, we're intelligent, we are harmless.
50,000 Americans died by suicide last year. That is thought to be the highest rate since the dawn of World War II.
The United Methodist Church has lifted its ban on gay clergy, signaling a historic shift in the church.
If you are a parent raising kids, do not be satisfied if your kid tells you they believe in God. That is just the first little step.
The more you reject the instruction of your designer, the more you will fail to operate as designed.
I trust that God is an intentional, strategic creator, and I like who he's made me to be. We need to teach that in today's culture as a primary reason to trust God.
He illumines this word that he inspired, and he changes us through it, and it leads us to Jesus, so it leads us to hope.
Okay, we're back. Go check out the good work that our friends at Maven are doing, and the upcoming conference they're having in the North Dallas area in September. I'd love to see you there. We'll have a booth. Hopefully both Monique and I will be there. Still a little bit to be determined, but for sure I'll be there. So I would love to meet you in person. Okay. Kaylin is on the stream, and she was asking is what the people went through in the mentoring programs I was mentioning earlier. Is it kind of similar to the Colson program? Yeah, I guess kind of. I mean, I think some of the content would be different. Colson Fellows is more about worldview. But in the sense of it being a cohort and kind of once a week and group conversations and working through content. Yeah, I guess it would be sort of like that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to a question from Erica. What are your favorite Bible study tools? Not that one yet, Bob. Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong stream. Okay, I'm going to the Facebook or YouTube comments from Erica Hughes. What are your favorite Bible study tools and references? Do you read multiple translations? If so, what is your preference? Okay, favorite Bible study tools and references, definitely Bible Gateway. It's the only website I think that I pay for a premium subscription for. I usually use my birthday money and it has such helpful references that I can look at really quick. And I think they do a very nice job of it. I like being able to just check out some commentaries real fast. They have a wide variety of commentaries on their platform, and I just love Bible Gateway. You can check out a lot of different translations, take them for a test drive. You can click on the Greek and Hebrew, as I was mentioning earlier. So definitely, that's probably my all-time favorite, especially for lay people. Translations, like I mentioned earlier, in my day-to-day, I use the NIV 1984, but there's many good translations out there. The NASB, the ESV. I've been experimenting lately with the Legacy translation. So there's that. Okay, let's go on to another question. My friend, and feel free to put your questions in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, maybe jump over to YouTube. That's the best way to interact with me. Okay, I want to address a question from our friend Caleb Harrelson, who runs an awesome ministry in his region in the El Paso area for young people to get discipling and worldview training. I think he calls it Worldview Academy, where they can come after school and learn about the Christian faith. I bless Caleb. He did a big summer camp effort this year, and he is there to help resource the families in his area and to be able to disciple and mentor young people in his area. I love what Caleb's doing. And if you live in the El Paso area, go check out his good work. Okay, here's his question. What's your view of the current evangelical model of youth ministry? Should churches have youth ministers and or segment the youth so much in churches? Should the current model be improved or reformed entirely? Okay, here is the realm of Krista's opinions. Everything you're about to hear are opinions, okay? I am not a huge fan of our current youth ministry model, the widely used model. I'm not a fan of segmenting off youth. I'm not a fan of that kind of a thing. The first thing we have to understand is that the whole idea of youth ministry is a 20th century invention. More specifically, it's a post-World War II invention. Prior to that, families were just together. Kids were together, teens were together. We didn't have all this segmenting off according to ages and stages. I'm just not a fan of this. I think that churches would be far better off to encourage and figure out how to structure church life so that there's lots and lots of intergenerational interaction. Now, I think that if we want our young people to be involved in church, a really big component of that is to make meaningful opportunities for them to be part of a meaningful part of the life of the body. So I'm going to share an example from my own life and tell you, if Krista ruled the world, this is more of how what youth ministry would look like. When I was growing up and I was in high school, I had the most amazing youth pastor. And he was not amazing because he was an amazing speaker. He was a very average speaker. He wasn't amazing because we had a fancy program. We didn't have a fancy program. He was amazing because he taught all of us to serve in the church. And my friend Laura's on the stream here. She and I had the same youth pastor. Her husband and I are the same age. We were all in the same youth group. She can testify to this. So what he did was he created meaningful opportunities for us to serve in our local church. So from the last day of school that happened in the summertime through the first day of school in August, he had us busy. We were busy serving. We would run a 1-week program at the retirement center in Glendora. We would get up there, we would come 9 to 12 each morning and play songs for the older people, do hymn sings, do a little Bible teaching, do crafts with them. It was wonderful. And we learned how to be around older people. We did service projects at apartment buildings. We ran VBS at local apartment buildings. We invited kids at the apartment buildings to come to our VBS. One year he took us out to a neighborhood that was predominantly Chinese speaking. We didn't have any Chinese kids in our youth group, but we partnered with a Chinese speaking church and ran a VBS there in that local community for that church. We ran day camps for the kids in our own church. We ran 3 day camps in the summer and for kids in our own church. We ran the VBS program and we had hundreds of kids in our VBS. But the youth were an integral part of the body life at our church. That we had a youth choir, we did all kinds of crazy stuff. And our youth pastor had a Monday night program where we came and he just did hardcore discipling and teaching us what he called servant leadership. And he wanted us to learn how to serve the body, and he wanted us to know how to present the gospel. And we had to practice presenting the gospel all the time to kids and other, old people and all of that. And then we just served our local body. If we want to engage youth, we have got to stop thinking that our primary job is to entertain them. We've got to build them into the church culture so that they feel like they are making a meaningful contribution to the wider body of the church. If we are stuck in a mindset that the primary thing we need to be doing is just entertaining them, then we have missed out on things. And so what I love about what Caleb is doing, the very guy who brings up this question, is he took his kids out to help them pay for camp. He took them out on service projects for all the weeks leading up to camp to do yard work for other people, earn money, and be able to go to camp. But in doing that, he was making a meaningful connection with these kids and helping them begin to see the value of service. And going to camp just wasn't about getting stuff. They were making an investment back into their communities. We need more of that, okay? We also need more teaching and doctrine and worldview training and all of those things too. But we have got to stop the entertainment model for doing youth things. People right now, they don't want more entertainment. They want meaningful connection. And the church is so uniquely positioned to provide that. And part of doing that, I think, involves building a culture in your church where young people are making a meaningful contribution to the culture. So, Laura says, servant leadership was the best foundation I could have gotten through church. Ron Baum was the best. Yeah, that's the name of our old youth pastor. Family worship, Erica says, is a beautiful thing. I would also love to see more push to bring everyone together in a multi-generational learning and worship. Yeah, and that, also has some challenges in it, but definitely that was the universal model up until World War II. It's youth, this whole youth ministry specialized thing was not a thing until basically the 50s. All right. So those are my thoughts, Caleb. That's all my opinions about that. Okay, Tammy Smith says, how do you lovingly let a close friend or family member know that someone she or he has followed for a long time has bad theology? This would be someone that respected sources have identified as problematic. How do you do this without ruining the relationship? Okay, these kinds of questions are fun. We're going to have another one in a few minutes. All right, here's the thing. What you are asking, Tammy, is how do I have this emotionally charged, fairly complicated conversation with somebody and not have it ruin the relationship? That might not be possible. Okay. So I think that we have to get clarity over. The first thing we've got to get clarity over is what level of involvement does the Lord want me to have in this situation? Simply because I notice that somebody is listening to bad theology doesn't automatically, in my opinion, we're in the realm of my opinions, I have found in my life, God does not call me to comment on every single person's bad theology or who they listen to. I am not the police. The Holy Spirit can be doing some things that don't involve me at all. He could bring someone else to talk to that person. I might not be the best person to have that conversation. Okay. So that's really the first thing you've got to do is ask the Lord, what level of involvement do you want me to have with this person, this situation? I don't believe that God wants all of us to be in the policing business. Again, my opinion. Okay. So it might be that someone is consuming bad theology online, and the Lord may lead you to like they're not ready. They're not ready for that conversation. Or the Lord might be in a process with them where they're getting ready. I've had a few situations where the Lord really was like bringing up a kind of a situation where I was like, okay, I really think I need to say something here and try to be diplomatic as best I can. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. And that leads me to my second point is that you can't always judge the goodness or the effectiveness of it based in that immediate moment. If I had thought that, if I had judged my effectiveness with Monique on the immediate moment, I would just be an utter failure. There were so many conversations I had with her on justice issues, race issues, where she wasn't having it. She didn't seem moved. She didn't seem like I had persuaded her of anything. Ultimately, it was the Lord who changed her mind. And he brought situations into her path, into her life, that then she reflected back on something I maybe have said months ago, where she was like, hey, I see this now. I see your point. But in the moment, it was an argument. And in the moment, it was a difficult conversation. And I didn't always have, the best motives. That's not the right word, but it didn't always turn out well. Sometimes because I didn't show up well, and sometimes because she didn't show up well.
I always showed up well.
And sometimes neither of us showed up well. I think that some conversations are hard and emotional. So you need to be prepared to apologize if you don't do well. If preserving the relationship is truly what is motivating you, you need to be ready to apologize if you make a mistake. If you say something, you're like, man, I might be right about that with a capital T truth, but I made a sandwich and I put a rat in between the bread, and I gave it to them as a rat sandwich. And then I'm wondering why they didn't like it so much, so there's just a lot of dynamics to having harder conversations. If you make the goal, I want no conflict, you need to reevaluate the goal. But you also don't want to go into it where you're trying to create conflict. And conflict is just what follows you everywhere. If you get that feedback from your family that you're just constantly stirring up conflict and you're trying to police everybody's decisions, that's not healthy either. And so, restating my beginning point is you have to ask the Lord, what level of involvement do you want me to have with this situation? And so, yeah, there's a lot of things out there that I see online like, oh, yeah, this person that I used to go to church with, they're starting to make a lot of posts that sound like they're being influenced by XYZ errant theology. Well, do I get involved at that point? I don't know. But what I must do is obey the Lord. And if the Lord says to reach out to that person, I try to figure it out. Like, how can I do it? Can I invite them to coffee? Can I invite them to a side conversation or a phone call? But that's another component of this is what is your motivation? If your motivation is just to be right and point things out all the time, that's not a party that very many people are going to want to go to. So you have to do some work sometimes emotionally inside yourself of looking at, well, how am I presenting this? And what kind of feedback am I getting? I've had to be in some very hard conversations about doctrine. And sometimes they go well, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes people come back later and say, you were right. I had somebody reach out to me recently on Facebook, somebody that I barely knew in college. And she had had an offense with me all these years. And she reaches out to me 30 years later and says, hey, I've had this offense about you all these years because you stood up for this principle back when we were in college. And I always just thought you were narrow-minded and, kind of square. And she said, now I realize you were right. Please forgive me. I'm like, wow, that's some courage. So you can't always measure what's happening in the moment. Sometimes the Lord takes time to work with a person and they have to walk a road. And then, ultimately you have to know it's the Lord who changes people's minds, not you. You're doing your best to try to persuade people, but ultimately it's the Lord who persuades them. So I don't know if that helps. That's kind of how I think about it. The best is when people come on my page and they just blast me about things I never said. And somebody did this recently. And then I said, this isn't the way to persuade me to your position. And the person came back and said, oh, I don't care about persuading you. I don't care about persuading anyone. I'm like, okay, well, at least we have clarity that you're just about telling people your opinions. Great. That's not helpful. So check your heart, make sure that you're really doing it from a place of love and concern and not just to be self-righteous and right. And yeah, that's a whole conversation to have with the Lord about that. I hope that helps you, Tammy. It's a tough issue. It's a lot of variables. It's not just a one size fits all kind of a thing. I want to tell you guys really quick while you're putting your questions in the chat about the importance of pre-ordering our book, Walking in Unity. It's coming out October 15th. It's really rapidly coming on us. And the subtitle is Biblical Answers to Questions on Race and Racism. Now, I want to explain to you why pre-ordering matters. And it's because Christian publishing is a little peculiar. And there are a lot of Christian publishers out there that publish more progressive voices and a few that are willing to publish voices like Monique and mine. And what pre-ordering does is it helps the publisher know that there is actual interest in voices like ours. And so when people are willing to pay their money to support voices like me and Monique, it really sends a clear message to the Christian publishers that people like us are worth investing in. So I just really want to encourage you, if you already think you're going to pre-order, or if you already think you're going to order the book anyways, can you just do Monique and I a favor? If we have had any meaningful sowing into your life and you already know like, oh yeah, I'm getting that book. Can you please do us a favor and go buy the book now and do it on pre-order? It would really mean a lot to us to do that. And also I want to encourage you to maybe think about multiple orders. Think about buying a copy while you're there. I would love it if some of you would think about buying 3 copies, one for yourself, one for your pastor or elder to give away to somebody in church leadership that you know, that you have a relationship with, and one for your church library or your Christian school library. If you would consider, and if you can afford it, if the Lord puts it on your heart, 3 copies, that would be awesome, because we really need your help to get this message out. There are not a lot of books out there on our side of the conversation. There's a lot of books out there on the progressive side, but our book is kind of in a unique space, and we really need your help to send a strong message to Christian publishing that this kind of content is sellable and it has value. And I want to encourage you to, especially, you can, it's for sale everywhere, like Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, christianbook.com. You can get it at all those places. But if your conscience is okay with it, and I know some people's conscience is not, and I'm not here to encourage you to harm your conscience in any way. But if you buy the book through Amazon, they aggregate those numbers, and those are the numbers, for better or for worse, that what publishers look at is the Amazon sales. Those sales get pushed through to the publishers. So if you're okay with ordering through Amazon, and we'd love it if you would order 3 copies, one for yourself, one for someone in your church leadership to give away, and one for your church or Christian school library, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, now let's go on to the next question. This was from Abby. Can you talk about how to handle friendships or relationships with people who have left your church, or when you're the one who has left? Hospitality and the ways it had looked in different seasons of your life. Okay. Handling friendships with people who have left your church, or when you're the one who's left. I kind of wish I knew a little bit more about this question, because to me, it's just a very simple answer. And maybe she's not looking for a simple answer. I don't know. But to me, if you want to stay in a relationship or a friendship with somebody that was from your former church, just do it. Now, it might take more intentionality, because you're not seeing each other regularly. Maybe you're not in a small group anymore, or maybe you're not seeing each other every Sunday or sitting together during the worship. But to me, there's really nothing tricky about this. Unless you're in some kind of situation where you went through a divorce and now you're dividing the friends. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. I wish I kind of knew more about this, but just on the surface of it, if you want to stay in friendship with somebody, do it. Just reach out to them, invite them over, come over for game night, or have some dinner or whatever. There's a few people that from my former church that, I'm still in contact with. My best friend moved away to Texas back in 2017, and we just had to be super intentional about staying connected and continuing to communicate and all of that. And she's journeyed through that, of some people stayed connected to her and some didn't. And so to me, this just isn't a complicated answer. I don't know if I'm missing something, but if you want to stay friends with somebody, stay friends with them. Who cares if you don't go to the same church? If the Lord really puts on your heart of like, hey, yeah, I want to stay connected to them, or they were great couple friends, let's maintain that connection. Just be intentional, reach out to them. Go out for dinner, invite them over for game night, get your kids together, have a pool party, whatever. Do that. So that's my very brief answer to that. All right. Okay, I got one more here from Kipling. Maybe to go along with Abby's question above. How, what, and why to talk about theological issues and differences without coming across as a jerk. This is a very similar question to the one we had before. What are the best questions to ask, or how can I say, I don't agree with that belief? and keep the dialogue and the door for conversation open. Okay, so here's how I do this. Some practicals is if I'm getting together with somebody and we're having coffee, and then all of a sudden I kind of wondering like, oh, they're consuming this content by this person. I will ask the Lord, like, do you want me to say something? You know, I'll just kind of try to listen. The Holy Spirit, and James chapter 1, where it says, if you ask for wisdom, just trust that the Lord's going to give it to you. And so if I feel like, yeah, I think I could step into that and be in that risk with this person, I always make sure that I ask at least 3 to 5 questions before I state my own opinion. Okay. So building trust with someone, they have to really believe that you care about their position and that you're not just jumping into your own assumption about what they believe. So some basic questions I like to ask is something like, oh, can you tell me more about why you find this person interesting? This podcaster or this book or this YouTube preacher. You know, what do you find interesting about that teaching? What is it that motivates you to listen? Like, what's intriguing to you about their point of view? And try to get them to explain, you know, what that is. Or I ask something like, can you help me understand, you know, what went into you researching this issue or starting to interact with this content? Or how did you arrive at this conclusion? Or can you tell me more about like your biblical foundation for this? And so I will ask questions that invite them to share with me why this is meaningful to them. Because what I want to discern is what pushed them down this path. Was it that they've seen their kid deconstructing and then they started investigating these resources? Or they have a friend whose kid is struggling with LGBT issues and then they started investigating things? Like whatever the life situation was that caused them to start going down this path of this belief system, I want to investigate with them what that is. I also want to ask questions about how they arrived at a conclusion and what their biblical warrant is for said issue. That usually I find is a confusing moment for them because they might have 1 or 2 verses that they're using or that they're appealing to, but they don't have it as thought out as they thought they did. And so I just am inquiring, like, you know, how did you arrive at that conclusion? And how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how convinced are you? Like, I want to detect, like, are they already in this camp over here? Like a 10 out of 10? Or are they just investigating? Are they at a 3? Because if they're at a 3, I might have more of a chance of engaging with them and giving them some alternative voices to listen to and help them to think it through. If they're already a 10 out of 10, they're committed, their emotions are committed, their mind is committed. That's a much harder situation. So you've got to ask some questions to investigate. Our natural inclination is just to jump into an assumption and then start preaching at people. That almost never works. You want to persuade people. And persuasion involves respect, building trust. It doesn't mean avoiding hard things, but it sometimes means being patient, not trying to have the whole conversation at once, maybe spreading it out over several conversations. Sometimes when I'm talking to a non-Christian, I'll only focus on one thing, just one thing. And then when we have another conversation another day, I'll ask the Lord for one more thing. And sure enough, some opportunity comes up and then I'm able to say one more thing. But I don't feel the pressure that like I've got to convert this person all in one conversation and talk them off the ledge, and again, ultimately, it's the Lord who changes people's minds, not me. So those are some thoughts about how to do that. And again, results may be mixed. Don't always judge the success of something based on the immediate results. And make sure also that you really know what you're talking about. If all you've done is watched a 10-minute video or read an article on a website, you're not prepared for the conversation. You have to really know what you're talking about. And don't just tell them like, well, I'm going to send you this video and this book, and then you do this and you do your homework and put it all on them. So invite them into a journey with you. Like, hey, let's read a book together. Let's talk about it. Or I'd love to send you this video and then we can get together for coffee again. I'd love to talk about it and hear what your thoughts are and invite them into a conversation. Because ultimately, this has to be motivated by love. If your only motivation is to point out what's wrong and to just change their mind, that's probably not going to work. Your motivation has to truly be that of love and compassion and concern. And that will be manifest through your words and your tone and everything. If your goal is just, oh, I want to point out what's wrong here, they're gonna sense that. You can sense how people are feeling, even if they're, no matter what their words are. You can tell. You can tell how people are really feeling about you. So when I'm in that conversation, I'm always like, all right, what am I doing here? What's the outcome I'm really wanting? Oh, okay, I'm really wanting to have an outcome of persuasion and peace. Okay, how would I feel if I was in their position? What would be effective for me? Those are some of the internal conversations that I have with myself. Okay, I think that is all the questions that I had prepared for. Let me look on Facebook real quick to see if anything is there. That is not my feed. Okay, let me go over here. Okay. Oh, Kipling says that's helpful. Okay, good. I'm glad it was helpful. I'm glad you're tuned in. All right. One more thing before we hop off here. I want to invite you to go to the Center for Biblical Unity Facebook page and weigh in on our fall book clubs. Let Monique and I know what books you'd love to read and discuss together, and which ones look good to you that you think, oh yeah, I'd love to discuss this book, or this one's been on my book list and I even bought it and I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. Or if there's a book that's not on the list that we put in the post, but you think would be a great book, put it in the comments. So go over to Center for Biblical Unity, look for the post on virtual book clubs. We would love to hear from you and let us know your thoughts about book clubs for the fall, because we are starting that conversation right now. All right. Thank you, Annette, for pre-ordering the book. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful. And make sure that you are subscribed to Apple Podcasts or wherever you stream your podcasts so you can know when I drop another one. Might be a little while before I do. I might be able to squeeze one in next week, but I don't know. Maybe in 2 weeks, but it's going to be a little sporadic here for a while as I am working on my dissertation. But I have a ton of ideas for awesome and amazing content that will be coming after my dissertation is over, or at least most of it is over. And so you are not going to want to miss out on that. I have some great topics planned and some teachings planned that I hope will be of help to you. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon. Take care and God bless.